Great day, attractive thinker and visionaries around the world. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance. Dr. Toni Hatton here, your identity coach and get to the root specialist, where we support new and aspiring entrepreneurs with mental healing, mental strength, and mindset maintenance. Attractive thinker, I know that you enjoyed our last episode. I just want to take the time to thank you for clicking that like button, sharing these powerful messages, and subscribing to our YouTube channel at Beyond the Break 2020 because you don't want to miss an episode. Every episode is powerful, helps you get to the root of whatever it is that you're dealing with at the moment, whatever you're coming through, whatever you've just come through, and how to thrive through all of that. Because a lot of times, to shut in my journey, I didn't know how to thrive through that. And I want to welcome my co-host, Tichet Bradshaw, because Tichet is a visual encourager. And when you have an attractive thinker and a visual encourager, you're bound to win. Wisdom is bound to come up. Fire and power is going to be ignited because there's some consistency. There's like minds. There's um, congruency. There is power when two people come together who are truth seekers, pathfinders, groundbreakers, trailblazers, who want the more out of life. And that's why you tune in, because I know you feel that fire and power. Welcome, my co-host, Tichet Bradshaw, to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance.
Happy Mindset Monday, everybody. We made it through another week. We get to do what we've never done, go where we've never gone, have all that we deserve to have in this lifetime, and learn all that we can learn right now. It's a great day to be alive.
It is a fantastic and amazing day to be alive. You want to have your attractive thinker notebook handy to capture these gems because you either need them now or you're going to need them soon or you're going to need them later. But one thing I know for sure is that you're going to need these gems that we're dropping today. And I want to encourage you to not just listen to an episode one time. One time is your awareness. It's sparking interest. It's touching you on a deeper level. It's encouraging you. It's just like, something that's soothing. But that second time you listen to it, you begin to hear things that you didn't hear the first time. You begin to see things that you didn't see the first time. And the gems become more valuable and richer every time you listen to it. That's what I love about Truth to Shed, and the wisdom that we gather from the lessons and the blessings that we experience in our lives is that it grows with us. That means the message that you hear today is suitable for where you are today. If you listen to it again next week or next month or next year, and it will meet you right where you are and still give you what you need. Today we're going to talk about, I want to talk to the attractive thinker and visionary who is beyond the break. You've come out of a break. Maybe not necessarily just come out of a break, but you're beyond the break. Wherever you find yourself in that instance, you're beyond the break. And when we live beyond the break, that's a whole new being. You're a whole other person. And if you're a whole other person, that means who you used to be is over. The way you used to live is over. How you used to do things is over. The way you used to talk, the thoughts you used to think and ponder and dwell on, that they're done. You have a whole new set of thoughts that you think. You have a whole new thought pattern that you wake up with in the morning now that you're beyond the break. You don't think like you used to. You don't feel the way you used to feel, when you're living beyond the break. And we want to encourage you today. Tisha and I, we are very strategic about the messages that we bring to the attractive thinker generation. You're either in a break, entering into a break, or leaving a break. And we want to meet you right where you are. These messages are very strategic. That's why every title that you read, every message that you hear on our YouTube channel, it hits you to the core. It inspires you. It shakes you. It touches you right where you need to be touched because it's strategic. We designed it that way. It's not an accident. And today we want to encourage you to give voice to the things that you're carrying. Give voice to the things that you're carrying. So, why is that important? Why is it important to give voice to what you're carrying? Because when you give voice to it, you're acknowledging it. Think about a child coming into the room and you're busy doing something. They're trying to share something with you. They don't have your attention. They're talking. They went through the whole spiel. They told you about their whole day, or they told you about the whole incident that happened, and you didn't say anything. And that child knows that by you not saying anything, you weren't paying attention or you didn't hear them. That's a big one. You didn't hear them. When you didn't say anything, you didn't hear them. So they knew that. Now, when you are carrying an emotion, carrying a thought, pondering a scenario, and you don't give voice to it, you're not giving it your attention, it can't be heard, so it lingers. If the child is talking to you and you don't respond, they assume that you don't hear them, so they'll start again. They'll tell the whole scenario again because they're assuming that you didn't hear them the first time. So when we carry these patterns or things that we're pondering, these thoughts that we haven't shared, suppressed concerns that we haven't given voice to, when we carry that, we're not giving voice to it, so we can't address it. It can't be addressed. And if you're feeling this way on the inside and not addressing it, then you're carrying it. And Tichet, we talk about this all the time. What you carry has weight. It has weight, and it can weigh you down. Just like when you go through your closet, you're getting rid of clothes that you no longer wear or no longer interest you or no longer spark joy because they're taking up room in your closet for other things that you can add into your closet that meet you where you are now, the level of growth that you have experienced now. Just like when you leave those clothes there, they're taking up space. When you don't give voice to what's really on your mind and on your heart, is taking up space, it has weight, and it's not leaving room for the answer to even come up. It's not even leaving room for, it's taking up space for the answer. The answers are going to come from within you. You know how powerful it is just to sit down with someone you trust and share what's on your heart. Tichet, we've talked about this for years, but can you imagine how a person feels walking throughout their life? They they have these repetitive conversations on the inside, but on the outside, when you greet them, they say, "Oh, I'm doing great. Hi, how are you? Fine, fantastic, and amazing. I'm doing great." But that repetitive phrase, that repetitive issue is still playing in the background, and they're in need of someone to give that voice to. Talk to us today, Tichet, about giving voice to what you're carrying.
Absolutely. There is so much benefit, Dr. Toni, to assessing not only yourself, but your surroundings, your environment, the people you are engaging with every day, the people who raised you, your family, everybody that you have come in contact with. When you start assessing, when you start going into living beyond the break, where you
Mm,
have done the work, you have done a lot of the work in order to push beyond what you thought could break you, right? And if you are still in the break or still coming out of a break, take note of everything that you are going through in the break, because you will need to reassess those things later. And those things that you once thought was pain is going to start looking like light when you live beyond the break. Because when you live beyond the break, you start to be able to name and identify what happened in the break, and it start making more sense when you can identify things. When you can put a name to something that you went through, and it almost validates it a little bit,
mm,
or it emphasizes it more to make it more important, I would say. For instance, let's say your whole entire life has been going through where you pick up other people's energy, right? And you didn't quite pay attention. You just noticed that every time you're around somebody that feels sad, now you feel sad. Every time you're around somebody that's angry, now you feel angry. Every time you're around somebody who's uplifted, now you feel uplifted, and you start to wonder, like, what is my real feelings, what is going on. And then when you go through a break, and that break causes you to come into self-realization, and when you come into self-realization and you are used to self-assessing, being aware of everything around you, aware of people, you start to notice that you're an empath or something like that. And then you say, okay, so what is an empath? And you look, and most empaths pick up energy because that's kind of part of what they do. And then you learn how to use that as a gift. You learn how to use what used to get on your nerves about you. You learn how to use it as a gift, right? So a lot of you might have been talking, and now you learn how to use your talking as a gift. You learn how to use your seeing as a gift. You learn how to use the thing that used to annoy you or annoy other people about you. You learn how to use it as a gift. And so, but those things now have a name. It's an empath. So when you learn that name, that word, that name, that identity opens a door for all these new meanings to come to play. And when you get access to the whole new meaning, it changes your perspective of a lot that you went through. You realize that, yes, what I went through was real. And yes, I was still myself and connected, even though I was going through a break. Even though I was a pain, you can still see the spirit still there. You can still see where you stood and how you made no mistakes, right? You start, when you can pinpoint certain things in your life, it relieves you from the weight of it. So for instance, when you can identify a thing about yourself, and it used to be a thing you feel guilty about, when you identify it and see and can match it to what is a gift about you, it takes away the shame of having that be something you had in the beginning, in the break. For instance, picking up other people's energy. If you pick up other people's energy while you're in a break, you're like, well, I'm just a wind all over the place. Every time I access somebody, I'm just carrying their thing. So once you put a name to it and you say empath, then you know what an empath, you not only know that empaths more than likely are aware of other people's energy, or they pick up other people's energy quickly. Now that you know that you're an empath, you're prepared to take care of yourself as an empath. And so when you look back into your past and the break, you're like, oh, so a lot of that depressive state of being was not mine. A lot of those troubles I had it because I was accessing this person, because I was hanging around that person. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I went on medication because of that. And then you start to think, you start to be like, okay, so you start mathing. You start saying, okay, so when I was around this person, every time I was around this person, I felt out of character. And all of a sudden, I'm this big monster, right? And let's say the person is still in your life. The person you become a monster around is in your life. At the time, you tend to blame you because you like, maybe I'm just being too harsh. Maybe I'm forcing the issue. Maybe I'm just doing too much. But then when you start to learn who you are, you look at the fact that you weren't doing too much, that was a trigger. And those triggers, you start learning the different triggers that you have, and you start seeing that you weren't crazy at all, but gifted. You start seeing that the very thing that you thought was making you crazy not only has a gift, but now it's operating in your life as a gift. So you start to use those abilities to allow yourself to help yourself as well as others. You start to use those gifts. When you give voice to what you're carrying, we mean you're giving identity to the things that you have been through, the situations, the experiences, the circumstances. You're giving a voice to it. You're shining the light on it. You're saying, okay, this is what it really is. You're giving a proper perspective on what you went through. You, like, for instance, a lot of you may not have known you went through a quote unquote break. All you know is you was in pain, you was hurt, you was depressed, you was heartbroken, you was crying, you weren't living, you didn't feel good, and this can't be my life. Right? That's all you knew at the time. But then you listen to people like us, and we say going through a break, and then the more and more we talk about beyond the break, you like, that was the break. So that was meant to get me open. So that was meant for me to come into self-realization. So that pain right there was helping me to develop my gift. That pain was helping me to build a life I wanted to build. That pain was helping me to jump over a wall, a hindrance, or an obstacle, a hurdle that I always had trouble getting around. But now that you know it was a break, and you know the purpose of the break, now you know how to use the break. Now you don't let stuff break you because of what you went through in the break. So you don't go through the same pattern of hurt over and over and over again. This is why we acknowledge the break. When you're in the break, you have so much that is put on your shoulders: fear, guilt, shame, pain. I mean, you can name them, and you can see that they were all on your shoulders. The way to be able to uplift something is you have to identify it differently than yourself. So for instance, if I'm walking around with guilt, I have to identify the guilt and identify that I am not the guilt, identify where the guilt came from, the root of it, and why the guilt is there. That way, when I take the identity away from me, I can see this is not my shirt. When people know me and don't see me, they just see me, shirt, clothes, and all, but they don't recognize that this is not me, right? Because they see me as a whole. When you are aware, you notice every little thing, right? And so you say, this is not my shirt. This shirt doesn't fit me. So you can take it off now that you identify that it has made you uncomfortable, that you're wearing something that has made you uncomfortable. The pain that you have went through has put some clothing on us that we need to take off. So it's time for a lot of us to clean out our closets, because the things that used to serve us no longer serves us. The things that we used to like might not even have meaning for us right now. And so we can, because we are aware of where we are in this state and in the season, we can look at that and say, okay, this is not needed at the moment, and then we able to let that go so that we can walk lightly, right? And when you're beyond the break, you have to start breaking off a lot of, plucking those feathers off. A lot of those feathers that you had when you were in the break, you got to start plucking them off so that you can prepare to take flight, right? Just like the eagle, you got to allow yourself to identify the different experiences that you went through. And then when they become a thing, it makes it easier to break off, because you say, oh no, I'm not walking in fear, guilt, and shame. So let me take whatever is attached to this fear, guilt, and the shame, and let me take it off of me, because it's different. It's different than who I am. I'm not my problems. I'm not my situation. I'm not my circumstances. I went through those circumstances. I went through those situations, but I'm not. So some of us has been labeling ourselves something according to what went on in the break. But when you put a name to what went on in the break, and you can identify the difference between that thing and yourself, you can then separate it. And that allows you to, when you move beyond the break, to leave that thing behind. You want to leave behind the fear, the guilt, the shame, the doubt. You want to leave behind the pain, and you only want to take what's necessary, which is the lesson and the blessing. We have to be able to move lightly, but we got to move by the Spirit. We can't carry everything. We can't save everybody. We can't help everybody. We can't learn everything all at once. We can't do everything all at once. We have to move by the Spirit. The Spirit will teach us when to contribute, when to sow a seed, when to help, when to pull back, when to walk away. It will let you know. But that knowing comes when you have that self-awareness, which a lot of times happen when you're trying to push yourself out of the break. But it starts when you start realizing, hey, I ended up in a cocoon. So how do I get out of this cocoon? How do I get out of this break? How do I get out of this place of stuck? How do I get out of this darkness? It's like noticing, Dr. Toni, here's an example. It's like noticing that the dirt that you have been under was fertilizer as a flower. If you're a seed and you say, all this dirt was on me this entire time, you should have seen it. All this dirt was on me, and then I cracked open, and then I went through all this pain, and I started growing down, and then I didn't look like the color they said I would be, or I said that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a rose. I thought I was a rose, but here I am cracking, and I'm green with these buds and white going downward instead of going upward, and I can't seem to get this dirt off of me. But when you come up and you bud, you're budding and you're sprouting, and you look down and you say, oh, that dirt was fertilizer. So that dirt helped me to crack open. So the cracking open of me was not a bad thing. The cracking open of me was necessary because it was the cracking that got me to sprout. It was the cracking that got me to be able to open up and see the sun the way I'm supposed to. The cracking served this purpose because now I have seeds in me, right? I couldn't get the seeds that were in me out until I sprouted open. So you mean to tell me that cracking open was a thing that was necessary? So we just gave voice to what the cracking was. We're saying the break is the cracking of the seed. It is where you went down into some situation, circumstance, or what have you. It felt dark, and then all of a sudden you just was bust wide open. Here you was living life as one thing with this hard shell, and then the next thing you know, you bust wide open and some things coming into you, and now you got all these little buds that's sprouting from you, and you're growing downward instead of upward. But then you label that the growing downward was me being rooted, so that when I get up here and sprout, I'm not just blown away by every little wind. You have to literally pluck me or cut me in order for me not to stand where I am, because I was grounded in good soil, right? And that's the thing. We want our seeds to go in good soil. We don't want to keep sowing seeds on gravel, because those seeds need those fertilizers. They need good soil in order to sprout. This is why we say, even though you have the gift of helps, you can't help everybody. And some of us have the gifts to help. I know I'm one. I've always had the gifts to help. And believe it or not, the gift of helps at one point felt like a curse to me, Dr. Toni, if we can really talk about it, because it's like I had no time for me. I was trying to help and save everybody at the same time, and I was cracking under pressure. Why? Because I felt like it was never enough that was being done. The work was never done. Somebody always needed something. It was never a time for me to just sit and heal, because my gift of helps meant I had to go and serve and serve and serve and serve and serve. And I served with a good heart. So I don't regret the serving, but I wasn't serving according to the spirit. I was serving any and everything, and I was getting burnt out, and I did get burnt out. I got burnt out and shut down real good. That was my going into my cocoon season. When I went into my cocoon season, which is equivalent to after the seed break, and you're down in the dirt, and you're open, and all these things are exposed, and now it just feels like you're stuck, because you don't identify as that shell you had, but you can't quite identify as the flower you want to be. You're stuck down in this ground, right? And that's the equivalent of being in a cocoon. So the biggest transformation that took place for me was in the break. That's the biggest transformation that took place. If you look at the butterfly, that's where the biggest transformation took place. All of those stripes and that beauty you see on the wings of the butterfly happened in the cocoon. All of the things that got exposed from the transformation from the seed to the flower happened in the ground, right? It happened in the break. It's not until we were able to grow up and sprout that we were able to see that. While we were going through it, it hurt. But when we go tell our story to another seed and say, listen, when you go in the ground, this, that, and the other is going to happen. This is what the show is, Dr. Toni. When you go into the ground, you're going to have your seed going to break wide open. And there's going to be things that fall out. You have heard us say that, right? That's when we're talking to the ones going into the break, because they have no idea what they're going to encounter when they get down in that ground. They seem to have this mindset that I can just go from a seed to a flower without accessing the soil. I can go to a seed from a seed to a flower without going through the transformation of having that seed cracked open. And then they're shocked when they fall in the ground, and it's like, or when they plant it and they like, wow, what am I doing down here? What did I do? And you start putting blame on yourself, like, what did I do? What did I do to end up in this situation? How did I end up down here? Did I make the wrong decision? Am I thinking the wrong thing? Do I have the wrong gift? Did I make the wrong step, the wrong turn? And the truth of the matter is you didn't. The break was necessary because greatness was calling you. What you went through was necessary because greatness was calling you. Because inside the seed, greatness was in you, but they couldn't get it out of you until you went through the break. The thing is while we was in the break, we thought we was going to live life continuously in the break, but that's because we underestimated the power of who we are. The power of who we are was always in us, whether you was a seed or a flower. The power of who we are was always in us, but the power of us had to be exposed, and it was exposed under the pressures of the break. So then when you decided not to give up in the midst of that break, and you decided to trust your spirit and keep going, keep learning, keep assessing, keep becoming more and more aware, keep trying to identify who you are versus what you are versus where you are versus all the things that you have and do. Keep going. You decided not to give up in the dirt. You allowed yourself to bud, and you still didn't give up when it didn't look like what you saw on the original idea of a rose, because a rose don't come out and all of a sudden it's a flower and just bloom. It comes out green first before it even starts to do the red. So when you're in that budding season, you still didn't give up. You say, I know it's something great in me, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep taking these nutrients. I'm gonna keep taking the sun and this water, and I'm gonna keep growing. And so you end up blooming enough to be able to tell the seed, this is all you want to go. This is some of the things you want to go through. It's similar. It might be a different situation, a different face, but it's similar situation. It's similar energies that's created. Dr. Toni might have had something dealing with her son, and I had something dealing with the loss of my child, but we had a break. It's a different situation, but it's the same type of energy. It hurts. It's pain. So we might not have gone through what you went through, but what you went through was pain. What you went through was a break. So it's not the same, but it's the same, right? And so we're saying to you who's going through, you can name so many different situations you have gone through. We're saying, hey, don't give up while you're in the break, because above the break is awesome. You actually at the end of all of this, you actually sprout, and then you can enjoy the rain and the sun, right? That's what we're saying beyond the break, Dr. Toni. And then we're allowing you to see our processes along the way. We say, I took this off my shoulder. I took that off my shoulder. I did this, I did that. I got all the evidence of a seed off of me, to the point that when you look at my flower, you can't even tell I was a seed. That's how powerful, how much power you have in you, that when you begin to sprout, you will have no evidence of a seed in you. So when you go tell somebody, hey, these are the struggles, they look at you like, how do you know? How do you know? You can't relate to our problems. How do you know? When you're not down here, you don't have shells like the rest of us. I did have a shell. And I'm telling you, this is how you get to the point where you can become your full self. This is what Beyond the Break is for. And so when you're in that state of mind of being able to minister to people and tell them what you went through, being open and honest, being vulnerable, and telling them what you went through, you're giving a voice to what you were carrying while you're in the break, and helping them to recognize what's going on in the break, to give them more patience, give them more clarity, give them more meaning, accessing their power that allows them to go forward so they can become the full power that they are. Back to you, Dr. Toni.
I got a lot from that. Attractive thinkers and visionaries, I trust that you are capturing these gems, because I'm going to go over some things that Tichet mentioned and give you the practical application of why it's important to give voice to the things that you're carrying. Tichet, one of the things that I wanted to highlight is this, because when we hear words like let go, of what's no longer adding value to your life. Most of the time, number one, with new and aspiring entrepreneurs, we're always letting go of something because we're always growing and evolving. With visionaries, we are always letting go of something. We're always removing certain things from us. We're always exchanging one thing for another because we're constantly shifting identities. When you grow, you're no longer who you used to be. So you are shifting your identity. Your conversation changes, your thought patterns change, your belief system changes, and that's the core. That's where the anchor is right there, your belief system. When you continue to grow and evolve and you take on new tasks, you become a whole other person. Your belief system changes, your company that you keep changes. Now, Tichet, like I said a minute ago, when we hear the phrase let go, the first thing that comes to our mind usually is letting go of people, letting go of things that I'm no longer using, you know, like in my wardrobe, or some old clothes and shoes, or things and knickknacks laying around the house and things like that, or letting go of things that don't spark joy, things that I'm not connected to. But not too often we think about letting go of old thought patterns, or old belief systems, or old conversations, or old feelings. Those are things that don't come to the forefront of our mind when you hear somebody say, "Oh, as a new and aspiring entrepreneur, as a powerful person, or as a leader, you have to let go of certain things." We're not thinking about thoughts. Eventually we get to that, but the first thing we think about is, who's in my life that I need to let go of, or what kind of actions am I taking that I need to not do anymore, or things like that. But when we talk about giving voice to what you're carrying, there is a letting go process. You have to let go of your way of doing things concerning your thoughts. Whereas you used to be okay with walking around with carrying things that you're not giving voice to. Now you can't do that. You can't afford to do that as this new person because of the weight that it carries and what it doesn't leave room for. Like we talked about, the clothes in the closet doesn't leave room for new clothes. So these things that you're carrying that you're not giving voice to are taking up space in your mind, in your spirit, in your energy, in your mood, and how you move throughout life. Is taking up space where clarity belongs, where freedom belongs, where peace belongs. It's taking up space for courage and bravery. So we have to give voice to the things that we're carrying because it's a form of letting them go, of releasing them, of lightening the load. So while you were talking to Shet, um, I wrote down some things that I wanted the attractive thinker generation and the visionaries to capture in their attractive thinker notebook. When you give voice to it, see, sometimes you might say, "Well, Dr. Toni, what are the benefits of giving voice to it? What's the point of talking about it anyway?" When you give voice to it, because you are all that you will ever need to be in this life, truth is not going to come from outside of you. Truth comes from within. It's already in you. There's some things on top of your truth suppressing your truth. And when we begin to do our inner work, removing things, then out pops the truth. Oh my God, like I didn't know that was there. Wow, I didn't know that I could say something like that, or sing that way, or write that way, or perform that way, because it was always in you. Now you might say, "Well, Dr. Toni, there were things in my life or situations in my life where as someone came to me or walked up on me and shared some truth with me, and that was what gave me my breakthrough, or I broke free, or lifted the weight or the heaviness." They still weren't giving you, they didn't give you the truth. They confirmed the truth that was already inside of you, because in order for you to respond in the way that you did, it had to be in you already. We don't
Mhm.
respond to things that are not in us already. If somebody is giving out purple balloons, if purple is not your favorite color, you're not going to respond to that. No matter how many balloons they give away, you're not going to respond to it because it doesn't resonate with you. When somebody walks up on you and shares a truth, the only way you could respond to it is if it's already in you, if it resonates with you already. So they didn't give you anything, they confirmed something. They reminded you of something. They sparked something that was already in you. So when we talk about giving voice to the things that you're carrying, We already talked about it releases that weight, but when you give voice to it, you're making room for other perspectives other than your own. You're making room to hear another angle, another viewpoint, another side of it, other than the one you're thinking. When you give voice to it, to shed, you say it's like identifying it. So if we don't give voice to it, that means it's not being identified. It doesn't have an identity. So now we have these things lingering on in our minds and in our energy and our spirit that we can't identify. We know it's there. We feel it. We know it's there. We feel the heaviness. We can feel the weight of it. We just don't know what it is. Um, Other than that, you don't know what it is. You don't know how heavy it is or how much you're carrying. You don't know that what you're carrying are thoughts that are taking up space, thought patterns, or wandering ideas. Ideas that just come and go. They're floating while you're at the supermarket. They're there while you're shopping, while you're driving, these repetitive thoughts that are silently lingering in the background. And because they're not being addressed, they are taking up space. They have weight. Don't think that just because you don't give voice to it, that it's not affecting you. Don't think because you're not giving voice to it that it doesn't mean anything. If it's in your heart and it's constantly there, then it does mean something. And it is taking up space and it does have weight and it needs to be addressed. It needs a voice. It needs a voice. We harbor or hold on to those wandering thoughts and ideas, assumptions of possible alternative outcomes. And that was a big one for me, Tichet. Assumptions of possible alternative outcomes. Could it have turned out this way? Or maybe if I had said this, it would have turned out that way. Or maybe if I had did this, it would have turned out that way. Or maybe if I hadn't said this or hadn't responded. Or maybe if I didn't show up. Or maybe if I had showed up. You know, listen, I'm giving voice to the mechanisms that are going on in the mind right now. That goes on in the mind all the time until we give voice to it. And I'm going to get to how to give voice to it, but I have to identify it first so that you know what you're dealing with. You ever have thoughts and you say, well, I'm not thinking about that today, and then it comes back tomorrow, and then the next day? Yes, you cannot think about it, but you need to address it, give voice to it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So we think about those things that we don't give voice to, like phrases like shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And we did an episode on that. Shoulda, coulda, woulda's not your friend. You might want to go back and listen to that as well. Those repetitive movies and scenes playing out every now and then, those experiences playing out all the time, over and over, but because you're not addressing it, you're ignoring it, you're denying it, you're acting like it's not there. And it is there. And that's why it keeps popping back up. It pops up, you suppress it, you ignore it, you deny it, you move on with your day, and then it pops up again. If in order for something to pop up, it has to be there. So how do you get to the place where it's no longer there? We're going to get to that. So um, when we have those repetitive experiences, they cause you to doubt. You doubt how you responded. You doubt if you responded the proper way. Giving the intangible a voice. I want you to write this down in your attractive notebook. Giving the intangible a voice gives it an opportunity to be properly placed. Giving the intangible. Intangible means those things that aren't seen. Those repetitive thoughts and scenarios and phrases that we play out over and over and over in our mind. Giving the intangible a voice gives it an opportunity to be properly placed. It has to be put in its proper perspective, so that it's not lingering and always ever before you throughout your day and popping up and affecting your decisions as a new and aspiring entrepreneur, your choices, your opportunities, conversations, your encounters. That's what I'm saying. You think it's not affecting you, but if it's there, it's affecting everything. The heart needs to be addressed and not ignored. The heart needs to be addressed and not ignored. Now, I'm going to share with the attractive thinker generation and visionaries some tools that you can use, some next steps that you can apply to support you in giving that intangible experience a voice. What about now? This is something that I do, Tichet. When I see, sometimes you don't even know what's lingering in the background, what's what weight you're carrying, or what experience is repetitively challenging you. Sometimes you don't know that it's going on. Have you ever had a dream and then you woke up and you moved about your day? You went to the bathroom, you took care of your hygiene, and you're on your way downstairs to get your cup of coffee or your tea or whatever you drink first thing in the morning. And then it hits you, it's like, oh my God, I had a dream last night. You didn't remember it when you got up. You didn't remember it while you were in the bathroom. You on the way down the steps, it hit you like, I had a dream last night. So when we it's that same way that these intangible things in the background of our mind are running, and all of a sudden you stop what you're doing. You say, wait a minute, why does this keep popping up? Why am I thinking this? That's the start of giving it a voice, because that's the start of addressing it. Because before that, it was just running in the background. You weren't saying anything, you were ignoring it, you didn't give it your attention. But all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, I thought this yesterday. I thought this today. I thought it last week. Okay, this needs to be addressed. So let me show you how to address it. You give it voice, number one, if you can. If you can address it. Like there was a thought that popped up maybe a week or so ago, Tichet, and I heard myself out loud say, no, that's not true. I had to talk back to it, talk back to my own thoughts, my own repetitive thoughts, giving voice to it, addressing it, not ignoring it and not being in denial about it, because it's not going anywhere. It's going to keep popping up. So you speak in an audible voice, addressing the issue with yourself first. Then you get a journal. You want to give feel and give life to this thing that you're carrying, this thing that's lingering. So you journal how you feel about it, or whatever the repetitive thought is about. So you can not only hear it, you're hearing it every day as you go about your day, but now you get to see it on paper. You're giving life to it. It's taking on form. You get to see this thing for what it is. You get to see what you've been carrying. And the attractive thinker generation and visionaries already know that pen and paper are the gateway between the internal and external, the physical and the spiritual realms. Pen and paper. As soon as you write it down, it begins to take on form. It's like it comes alive. You're giving life to it. So if that's the case, then you're now addressing and giving attention to this thing that's lingering, so you can figure out what it is, why it's there, and what does it want from you. What is it? Why is it here lingering with me? And what does it want from me? What kind of steps should I be taking to address this? Once you do that, don't just write it down. You don't stop there. Now you have to read what you wrote. Go back and read what you wrote. See, it's one thing to think about what's going on in your head. It's another thing to see what's going on in your head. And when you write it on paper, you get to see what's going on in your spirit and in your feelings and your emotions, how you really feel about a thing. That needs to be expressed. So when you go back and read it, you're not just reading it to read it. You're looking for patterns. You're looking for clarity. You're looking for answers. There may be some things that you write and journal about that you haven't said out of your mouth verbally that might be an answer to what you're dealing with. You're looking for clues and to answers. Even if you don't get the actual answer, there are clues that lead to the answer. There's a path that leads to answer. So you're looking for that. For more clarity, a different perspective. You might say, well, I wonder why I thought about that way. That's not all the way true. I could think about it this way, or this happened also. And I need to include that in my thoughts about this situation, not just this one perspective. So Another aspect of this, another step you can take to give voice to it is for clarity and, of course, a different perspective. Find someone that you trust and who is qualified. Everybody that you trust with your heart is not qualified to handle your heart. They're not qualified to give you the spiritual meaning behind your physical experiences. Aren't deep. Everybody isn't deep like that. So even the people around you with the best intentions aren't qualified to help you. So you have to find someone that you trust and is qualified to discern between the spiritual and the physical. And just number one, if you just do number one, speaking, giving voice to it, speaking to it, you'll feel some weight lift. When you begin to journal and write about it, you'll feel a whole lot of weight lift because now you got it out of you. When you begin to read back and you start seeing patterns and clues and lessons and blessings and perspectives that you haven't considered, more weight will lift. And then when you go and find someone that you can trust and has that discernment, they can discern spiritual from physical things, you can position yourself to get the resources that you need to lift all the way to free yourself from this thing so that you don't carry it. Now you have the proper perspective of it. You know what it's been addressed. It's finally been addressed. And you'll realize that it doesn't pop up like as regularly as it used to as you go throughout your day, being successful and fantastic and amazing. Tichet, give our audience some final comments and tell us how we can get in touch with you, the visual encourager.
Absolutely. One of the things to remember that when you give a voice to what you're carrying, that voice leads to clarity based on what you were just saying. That voice leads to clarity, but also that voice opens doors. And when I say opens doors, every time you learn something new and you get something that resonates, let's say, for instance, you never heard of somebody say beyond the break. You never heard somebody say visual encourager or visual encouragement, but now that you have seen the visual and encouragement, now all of a sudden visualizations is like in your forefront. Then what happens is new messages start coming with visualizations in it that start connecting. The break in different content will start resonating with you. The messages that you hear going forth that you would never have normally listened to. Now that they said something like Beyond the Break, you're like, wait a minute, that's like the show I watched earlier. So let me listen to what they're saying. So it just opened the door for more information to be fed for you, for more vocabulary, for more identities, for more things to for you to be aware, and it start like leading you like breadcrumbs, right? So when you give a voice to something, you are identifying where you are, what stage you are in life, what sometimes it'll open the doors for your next move. When you give a voice to something, it definitely will open the door for your next move because it will show you, it will shine a light on what your next step is based on the identity you just accepted or released in this moment. Because sometimes when you give a voice to something, you have two things you could do with it, Dr. Toni. You could either allow yourself to release it, let it go, or accept it and move forward and do something and allow it to be a tool used for your power, right? Because some things we let go and some things we don't, right? The best thing to do is to figure out who you are, as opposed to what you're going through or what you were made to believe or how you were raised and things like that. You got to figure out who you really are, who's really inside of there. The way to access that clarity of you is to go within. And to go within is to expose what's going on outward. You have to expose you to you. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't move and we don't learn until there's discomfort, until the break happens, or until something is disrupting us. That's when we decide, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Let me get up and move over here because I sat here too long. And so don't take for granted the things that you went through. right? The problems, the good, the bad, the ugly. Don't take any of it for granted, because all of it served its purpose and contributed to your objective for taking on
Mm-hmm.
these physical bodies. All of us is in this game for a reason, and we're in it to win it. We can choose to win it, because giving up for attractive thinkers and visionaries is not an option. So winning is our game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to stop until we win. We have so much more in store for us, that the pain of our yesterday is not going to compare to the joy and the power of tomorrow. And so we have to enjoy the day by releasing and accepting what needs to be released and what needs to be accepted. It discernment determines which one is which, and that comes from trusting the spirit, and trusting your intuition, trusting your discernment, trusting the next step that you hear your higher self say, or that you hear God say. You must do this, and you might not have full understanding, but you trust it and you step out on it anyway, and trust that if God told you to do something, to take a step, to move, to go forward, to go backwards, the longer you stand there questioning, the more you're hindering the movement. So when you trust and you say God said to step, sometimes you don't have time to get the why you had to step. Sometimes you got to step because you got 2 seconds till you find out why he said move,
Mm-hmm.
right? If something was coming at you that you might not have saw in your peripheral, but when God say move and you trust enough to say and you say, oh, that would have tripped me up real good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes you got to move, even though you don't have all your ducks in a row, even
Mm-hmm.
though you don't have all the answers. You have to trust the spirit. The spirit knows your whole journey, front and backwards. It knows everything. And so you just got to be able to have the discernment to trust. Build that relationship with yourself if you don't have that trusting, if you don't have that discernment. Build a relationship with the spirit. This is why it is important to have a relationship with God, and not just have a tradition of what people call God. You need a relationship, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because a relationship connects you on a deeper surface, on a deeper level. It allows you to get access to things you wouldn't normally get access to. Just like if my immediate family were to come over here, they get access to my house more than a random stranger who would just come by and knock at the door.
Mm-hmm.
You get access to the spirit that way when you build that relationship enough to say, okay, I'm gonna trust you. And then the spirit say duck, and then all of a sudden you do like this, and you look and you see that something went over your head that could have knocked you out.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have that kind of trust in your spirit. So when your spirit start giving voice to what's on you, you start saying, oh, okay, I got this on me. Let me just get that off. You don't have time to judge it. You don't have time to critique it. You don't have time to sit there and wallow in the disappointment, the fear, guilt, and the shame of it. You just have to say, okay, this was on me. Let me move it, because it's getting in the way of me being able to go freely. That's what we mean by plucking them feathers. You got to pluck some of them feathers off so that you can be able to fly more. We don't have time to judge what decisions we should have made, could have made, would have made. That type of stuff does not serve us. We have to take flight, and the way to take flight is to trust and to trust and to trust. So building that relationship is necessary. That's all I have, Dr. Toni. You can find me on my website at www.visualencouragement.com. We provide mental support for movers and shakers, for trailblazers, pathfinders, and groundbreakers. All you visionaries who desire to move mountains but need help lifting the heaviness so that you can create a new vision for yourself beyond the break. Again, that's www.visualencouragement.com. See you soon.
You know, attractive thinkers, I trust that you already have your copy of the Attractive Thinker on Amazon. If you do not, run on over to Amazon and grab your copy, because it is essential as an attractive thinker, a new and aspiring entrepreneur, a person with dreams, ideas, and desires who desire to transform their life in any way, or change or upgrade and elevate and shift your identity, grow and evolve. These tools are necessary because the real work, the real growth starts inside before it manifests outside. outside. Grab your copy of The Attractive Thinker, full of mental tools for mental healing, mental strength, mindset maintenance, strategies, tips, and action steps that you can take to help you reach your goals quicker, with less friction and resistance and challenges and limitations. We really go deeply into the mind and how we function as new and aspiring entrepreneurs and what comes up while we're on that journey. So I want to encourage you to grab your copy today. All the attractive thinkers who already have your copy, you want to listen to this episode again and scan through the Attractive Thinker book and find where you are, whatever resonates with you, and read that chapter so that you can reinforce this message and give voice to what you're carrying. Before I close, I did want to mention, if you're looking for clarity, if you need support, visit www.clarity.theattractivethinker.guru. That's clarity.theattractivethinker.guru, and you'll get in touch with me, the Attractive Thinker, to support you in discerning what's going on and supporting you in giving a voice to what you are carrying. You always hear us say, our life's work, it will always be to make your life better. Remember, it is not what you're going through. It never was. It's how you're viewing it. Think attractively, and we'll see you soon.